Hi dear friends, this is Bob Hatton. This is the Encourager. So glad that you could join me, and you see this weather is continuing, and that's good news for us. We've been looking at this great plan that God is developing. It's just unfolding now, and we've seen various things happen. We looked at the book of Judges, and we saw the difficulties that were happening in this book of Judges. We looked at these 6 circles, these 6 cycles that were going round and round. It seemed the same again, the same again, the same again. Now we're in the book of Samuel. The book of Samuel is now changing. Things are changing, but it looks first of all that we've entered another cycle. But then the high priest, who we've looked at him a little bit, Eli, he dies after the Ark of the Covenant is stolen, and the 2 sons, Hophni and Phinehas, they also fall in the battle against the Philistines as the Ark of the Covenant is stolen. We have a third person, Samuel, and Samuel has now established himself as a prophet in Israel, as a man who people are looking to as the leader, as the new judge. Now Samuel developed. We don't really know too much about how did he develop. We know something about his character. His mother dedicated him to the Lord. He heard that in chapter 3, he heard for the first time the voice of God, and he listened, and I guess he listened many times as God spoke to him. And we also learn that Samuel, he was a servant. He was prepared even to serve the people who'd left God, who were not walking anymore with him, but he diligently served Eli, and I think that is one of his great character strengths. He had a servant heart, and then he didn't let himself be influenced by all the bad things that were around him. Perhaps you're going at school, you're surrounded by a lot of bad influences. You don't need to follow these bad influences. At work, you don't need to follow these bad influences. You can make a stand for the Lord wherever you are. And we see that also Samuel, after he'd heard the word of God, he wasn't afraid to speak it. And he told Eli, of course, he asked him, what did the Lord say to you? And it was a very negative word that he got for Eli, but he wasn't afraid of speaking that. Now, I suppose he was a little bit in competition with Hophni and Phinehas, who were also well-known people amongst the people of God at that time. But here Samuel is developing. He has a godly character. He's a good guy, and he's hearing the word of God, and the word of God is being confirmed. And it says at the end of chapter 3 that as his word went out, none of these words fell onto the floor, and he was known throughout Israel. So Hophni and Phinehas fall. They die in the battle against the Philistines, and then the Philistines come again against Israel. Now, at this time something has changed, because now the people are listening to God. They're listening to what Samuel says, and they fight another battle against the Philistines, and they win. They have victory. This is not the last victory. They're going to continue to fight over the next many years, actually. But this is one of the victories. A new challenge would come in just a short time, but Samuel had time to take a breath, and he set a stone, and he called this stone, he said, the place where the stone is set, this is called EBEN-EZER, because up till this time God has helped us. And dear friends, we are coming out of a time now, at least in West Europe as I'm speaking, where this coronavirus crisis seems to be ebbing. It seems to be leaving us. We might be just on the verge of getting another wave. I don't know. I hope not. But we've been suffering from this time for the last 18 months. Many thousands of people have died on the corona crisis. There's been a lot of difficulties. Things have not developed maybe as we planned. But I wonder if we can set a stone here and say, this is EBEN-EZER. up until this time, God has helped us. God has been with us. And we've got to look back, as we look back over the last 18 months of restrictions, of being closed in, of not having the freedoms that we would have liked to have been, whether it's in our personal life, looking at the church. We were recently in a church service. We just sat there. We weren't allowed to sing. We listened to the music. We had to have masks on. We had to distance ourselves from people. We could only just touched some people with my fist as a greeting, but we weren't really able to share with them. We weren't able to come close to people, and then various other things in the work. The people have been hemmed in, but what have and it's like everything, God's lost control, but God never loses control. And in Romans 8 verse 28, the Bible tells us that everything must serve God's purpose, this purpose of good, for everybody who loves God and is called according to his purpose. So what have you learned in the last 18 months? I wonder if you could take a paper today and just take a few seconds to be quiet, and maybe you can say, this is what I've learned, this is what God has spoken to me, but this is what I've experienced, and this is what I've learned. And I know maybe for some people it's difficult if you've lost people who were close to you, loved ones, maybe have gone. We know in India of two pastors who we had quite good relationships with them. We count them maybe as our friends, and they've gone to be with the Lord. They've died because of corona. They've died a death was premature, probably, and it's been difficult. It's difficult for the families. It's difficult for the churches to continue without them. But everything has to serve God's purpose. And what have we learned in the last 18 months, so that we can set a stone today that call it EBEN-EZER? Up to this time, God has helped us. God bless you. Have a good day. See you again. You're Bob Hatton. You're encourager.